Welcome, friends and foes, survivors and killers. Let's sit around the campfire together and talk about Dead by Daylight. Specifically, the newest slasher on the block, M3GAN, and the potential and problems of M3GAN as a licensed chapter for Dead by Daylight. The 2020s have been an amazing decade for horror so far, and 2022 in particular was a truly historic year. I'd say the best year for horror in the 21st century so far, despite my love of Saw 2, Hostel and The Devil's Rejects, giving me some nostalgia for 2005. You know, for when I was 7. How I'm nostalgic for an era of horror I wasn't even old enough to see yet, I don't know. But regardless, the 2020s have been the beginning of a new renaissance of horror that delivered both high-quality sequels and reboots that breathed new life into existing franchises, and a ton of new compelling original stories as well. And after a smorgasbord of amazing new original movies in 2022, like X, Pearl, Barbarian and Smile, 2023 got off to a great start with M3GAN, which released in January this year and surprised everyone with just how successful, and actually quite good, it was. January is typically the graveyard where mediocre films are sent to die at the box office, and the news of the film receiving a PG-13 rating did scare many prospective viewers, but M3GAN proved to be an instant hit with critics and audiences alike. And just like always happens with basically every horror property that gets more notoriety than Charles Band's Evil Bong, people immediately start talking about M3GAN in Dead by Daylight. I'm people in this interaction, and today that's what I'm going to be talking about. I'll be dissecting what makes the mechanical heart of M3GAN tick as a movie and as a character, why I think M3GAN would fit so well into Dead by Daylight, and I'll be ending as usual with a power concept for the character. But before we continue, I just want to warn everybody that there will be spoilers for the movie, and I'd highly recommend watching M3GAN on a physical release or streaming service before watching this video. You'll have a great time, and you'll have more context as to what I'm talking about in this video. So what are you waiting for? Go watch it! Okay, so now that you've watched the movie, or just don't care about spoilers, let's dive headfirst into M3GAN. M3GAN, or M3GAN if you're weird, is a horror comedy about a woman who adopts her newly orphaned niece, and after struggling to bond with her, pairs her up with her newest work project, a robotic toy designed to function as a companion for a child. But predictably for a horror movie, the AI goes wrong and bloodshed ensues. Well, only as much bloodshed as the PG-13 rating allowed. The movie was produced by Blumhouse and Toy Monster, the same studios that we make in the Dead by Daylight movie, and was written by Kayla Cooper, the screenwriter for *Malignant*, which I've covered on the channel before and rates one of my favourite movies of all time, and probably most wanted licensed chapter alongside Resident Evil 7. When I saw names like these attached to the project, my hype was palpable. I loved Cooper's work not just on *Malignant*, but also on Hellfest and the episodes of Luke Cage that she wrote before *Malignant*. And James Wan, my favourite filmmaker of all time, so needless to say, the expectations were sky high. Unfortunately, it really followed through. M3GAN tells a charming story about a woman thoroughly out of her depth as she's unexpectedly pushed into the role of a parent, and in the process of trying to make Katie a happy and unobtrusive part of her life, ends up creating a homicidal murder machine that will do anything to keep Katie happy. And I mean anything. I'm not going to pretend the story of M3GAN isn't something we've largely seen before. The homicidal AI, created with good intentions, is far from an uncommon plotline, and M3GAN doesn't deviate too far from the archetypical evil AI story. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein set the formula for evil AI stories, and the basic plotline of well-meaning negligent scientist creates intelligence, the intelligence tries to be human without fully understanding the experience of being human, violence ensues, isn't strayed too far from in M3GAN, but it is modernised in a way that we haven't really seen before. And the reason this film isn't boring despite its fairly unambitious plot is the same reason the film will be suitable for Dead by Daylight in the first place. The titular character, the little robot that slayed, M3GAN. More than any other slasher movie I've seen in a very long time, M3GAN's charms mostly reside at the silica and titanium feet of its namesake villain. A lot of this is down to the performance. Don't get me wrong, M3GAN has a ton of great performances, with Alison Williams as Gemma and Violet McGraw as Katie being standouts, but it's no secret that Amy Donald absolutely steals the show as M3GAN, with a quality of machine acting that I haven't seen since Logan Marshall Green in 2018's Upgrade. Also made by Saw alum Lee Winnell. Amy Donald made her name as a dancer before expanding into screen acting, and M3GAN was her first feature film role, which she got at the age of only 11 because her background in dancing gave her the precision of movement and the physicality needed to portray a robot girl. She even did all her own stunts. And while an animatronic puppet was used in many scenes like close-ups, Donald's performance gave us many of the movie's most memorable scenes. The chase where she's running on all fours, all the kills, and even the iconic dance scene, which was choreographed by Donald and her dance teacher during filming. And it's here that I want to start talking about M3GAN's suitability for Dead by Daylight. One of the most important things a killer can have in this game is personality. And even before M3GAN developed something that we could call sentience, she emanates a personality that makes her almost impossible to dislike. It's kind of hard to pin down exactly what makes M3GAN such a fun presence to watch on screen once she meets Katie, until you realise that M3GAN being very charismatic, despite mostly just being a blank slate at this early stage, is precisely the point. M3GAN exists to help Katie get over her grief and learn to enjoy life again, and her consciousness hasn't developed enough yet to display much personality or thought beyond what she's been designed to do. After seeing Katie so miserable for the entire movie, and Gemma's inability to truly connect with her, rendering their interactions painfully awkward, M3GAN is a livening agent who we instantly love as fast as Katie does, just for seeing how much happier her presence makes Katie. Even from the start, she has this combination of unbreakable loyalty to Katie and a sense of playfulness that makes her feel to Katie like an actual person, a friend to be trusted and confided in instead of an extension of Gemma. And this has the side effect of letting us see M3GAN separately from Gemma too. Where Gemma is disengaged from Katie and focuses more on her work, M3GAN gives her her undivided attention, and engages with her on her own level, and even picks her up a bit when she's down about the loss of her parents, and Gemma's more interested in getting her and M3GAN in front of her boss than she is in her new adopted daughter's well-being. As the movie goes on, M3GAN's personality and the trickle of rebelliousness against Gemma that comes with it develops extremely quickly, meaning we continue to enjoy her presence in the movie even as she takes more and more liberties with her programming and operative functions to protect Katie from harm in a more, proactive way. First she kills the dog Dewey because he actively attacked and hurt Katie, which makes sense in the robot brain that says that keeping Katie safe is priority one. And then she kills the boy who hurt Katie in the woods and stole M3GAN away from her, which, a bit far to kill him, but again it makes sense for her programming. But then she starts stretching the definitions, like killing the neighbour Celia because she made a vague threat to Gemma, and by extension Katie, and then killing the funky employees because I guess they contributed to an environment that made Katie feel sad? M3GAN's antics in the movie as she's murderously protective over Katie saw the movie compared a lot to the 2019 remake of Child's Play, where Chucky is a malfunctioning AI so dedicated to protecting Andy that he ends up causing much more harm than he prevents. The biggest difference here is that while Chucky goes haywire because his safety protocols were disabled due to intentional sabotage, M3GAN more or less works as Gemma intended her to. Gemma had every opportunity to adjust M3GAN's code, moderate her time with Katie or what she could learn, and create boundaries where necessary. She just didn't, because as long as her and Katie were getting along, she was content to let things be. M3GAN didn't become an obsessive murderer because of some coding flaw. She became an obsessive murderer because that's what Gemma unintentionally brought her up to be. But we'll talk more about that later when we cover Gemma and how she influenced M3GAN. After a fairly slow start that's typical of a Michaela Cooper script, it was the killing spree that took up most of M3GAN's third act that sold me on M3GAN in Dead by Daylight. By the end of the film, M3GAN's personality has developed fully into an unapologetically murderous, selfish megalomaniac, who's killed all these self-centered, jerkish or idiotic characters we've seen so far in this movie, and she's well and truly settled into her role as slasher villain at this point. Hacking your way through a bunch of irritating side characters as you carry your movie by sheer force of personality is a rite of passage for every slasher villain, and Jason, Freddy, Michael and the rest are all looking on proudly from the sidelines as M3GAN TikTok dances and cartwheels her way through Funky's employees. As she's doing so, some traits about her become more apparent that we can start to formulate into potential power for M3GAN. Despite being referred to as a toy repeatedly by the Funky employees, M3GAN isn't really a killer doll in the vein of Chucky or James Wan's prior killer doll Annabelle. Unlike Chucky, who's the size of an actual toy, and thus would need a power to accommodate his tiny size, M3GAN is the size of a human being. A child, yes, but a human being all the same. And she could be given the small height category like Sadako, since Amy Donald isn't that much shorter than Sadako's actress. It helps that despite her height, M3GAN is incredibly strong, with an endoskeleton made of titanium and carbon fibre to make her far stronger and more durable than a human being, even an adult. She's effectively a pint-sized Terminator. It makes her more than capable of beating survivors to a bloody pulp, carrying them to a hook and withstanding pallet stuns with no complaints at all. It's characteristics like these that make M3GAN stand out so much compared to other modern slashers. Most modern slashers, like Babyface from Happy Death Day, and Pearl from, well, Pearl, are just people. What makes them identifiable is either a particular presentation style of the movie that they're in, or the character's journey and development within the context of their one story. Despite this method habitually making some pretty excellent movies, it's quite dissimilar to the old school draw of slasher movies. You turn up to a Friday the 13th movie, not to see its unique presentation style or storytelling, but because you like Jason Voorhees and want to see him murder some horny teens. Most old school slashers use their villains as their unique selling point, and while it's developed a reputation for making some not great movies, let's not forget it also gave us some real bangers. Most notably with the resurgence of the requel trend that's seen life breathed back into many of these old iconic slashers. Pearl is a great example of how most modern original slashers are made. The main character is charismatic and well acted, absolutely, but that charisma and performance is done in service of the story and its themes, even if that story is a character study. Pearl is beloved because she was a central character in 2 amazing movies. But it doesn't mean that she's distinctive enough, or frankly marketable enough, outside of the context of X and Pearl to be franchisable. She's just a person, doesn't have a particular modus operandi or unique selling point inherent to her beyond just being in very, very good movies. She doesn't do anything that draws you to see her in movies beyond being well acted and well scripted, and it's why I won't be covering Pearl on this channel in the context of DBD, despite my absolutely rampant love of the movie. It's not enough for a character to merely be in a very good movie. They have to be the movie. Instantly recognisable as having certain traits and characteristics even outside the context of a particular film or piece of media. That's ultimately what a licensed chapter for Dead by Daylight functions on. Recognisability and marketability to draw players in. And that's why DBD has so many old school slashers like Michael and Freddy, whose mere presence on a poster or in a trailer told you the kind of experience that you were going to get in a way that most modern slashers just don't. M3GAN, however, is not like most modern slashers, because M3GAN is the draw to her own movie. You could strip out everything else, take out Gemma and Katie and Funky, and recontextualise M3GAN in a totally different setting. If you keep the same look and voice and sick dance moves, people would still watch, because M3GAN is the star of the show and everyone knows it. You don't get a dedicated dance troupe imitating you at NFL halftime shows for just anyone. And by centering M3GAN's antics at the forefront of the film's marketing, it secured a massive box office success of over $170 million, and a sequel greenlit the week movie hit cinemas. That $170 million, by the way, that's more money than any single installment of any of the following franchises: Scream, Insidious, Child's Play, Evil Dead, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Saw, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Hell, of Halloween's 13 installments, only Halloween 2018 made more than M3GAN at the global box office. Only 2018. A non-franchise slasher by a screenwriter and director with very limited cinematic careers before M3GAN out-earned all these big names of horror history by making the funny robot girl do a TikTok dance in the trailer. Now that is the kind of star power that gets people talking, and that's the kind of thing Dead by Daylight looks for in their licensed collaborations. But now it's time to look at what she'd actually do. How does M3GAN go about killing her victims, and how could we incorporate that into Dead by Daylight? There are 3 kills that I think we should look at to figure this out. Her hunting of the boy Brandon after he attacks Katie in the woods, the killing of the neighbour Celia in her garage, and her rampage in the Funky offices as she escapes containment. The woods is the most obvious place to start. When M3GAN chases Brandon, she hunkers down onto all fours and sprints after him like a wild animal, which I thought was a pretty neat way of doing things when you realise that to this day, robotics engineers struggle to make fast bipedal motion a thing you can get robots to do. Which is why the Boston Dynamics dog, for example, is quadrupedal. It gives more stability when moving quickly. Not only is it a surprisingly intelligent directing decision, it gives M3GAN a very unique form of locomotion, which could be tooled into DBD as directional map traversal. Yeah, we have another mobility killer on our hands. But M3GAN isn't just a chaser. In fact, this is the only moment she displays any predilection towards closing the gap quickly. M3GAN is nothing if not a quick learner, and she's just as capable of using trickery and strategy to lure her victims into where she needs them to be, to dispose of them quietly but painfully. To kill first the dog Dewey, then its owner Celia, M3GAN displayed an ability to synthesize the voice of others to bait them in for the kill.
Dewey! Dewey boy! Dewey! Come here, boy! Come on!
It's that kind of thing that lends itself to the kind of robot that M3GAN is, as she weaponizes her ability to record and synthesize voices to manipulate people. And it'd be too good an opportunity to waste to give M3GAN a new form of disinformation that we don't really see much of in DVD these days. M3GAN feeding a fake auditory input to the survivors to confuse or manipulate them would be a really neat feature that we haven't seen since Dark Devotion, and haven't seen on her powers since the Doctor of all killers. But auditory hallucinations and running quickly at people, I don't think there's enough to emphasise M3GAN's unique role as a robotic slasher, so I want to introduce to you her rampage at Funky to show you how I plan to tie this whole power together. M3GAN displays a great deal of technopathic abilities that definitely suit a sentient AI. First, she deletes her own security footage off the cloud so that Gemma can't check up on what she's doing, then she hacks the engineer Tess's phone to trick Gemma into letting her guard down, and then she disables the security systems at Funky's headquarters so Gemma and the others don't find out what she's doing until it's already too late to stop her. It's even implied at the end of the movie that M3GAN has uploaded her consciousness into Gemma's home assistant Elsie to survive her destruction. But just as M3GAN can leverage her existence as a machine to her advantage in this world governed by interconnected smart technology, it also leaves her vulnerable to disruption in turn by tech-smart people like Gemma, who can use her inbuilt failsafes and dependence on Funky's OS against her. I think there's room for a really interesting gameplay dynamic here, where M3GAN uses technology to her advantage, but that same technology can be used against her, to really highlight that she's a whole different beast of the flesh and blood killers we're used to, and how she should be handled differently. But there's one thing I want to add before looking at the Survivor for a M3GAN chapter, and that is the obsession mechanic. As part of her function as an artificial companion, M3GAN was designed to effectively imprint herself onto a user, to set them as a primary user, whose enjoyment and safety is her number one priority. For M3GAN, that's Katie. And much of her rampage of bloodshed is done in the name of keeping Katie safe and happy. While she's pretty flexible with the primary user status, with Gemma attempting to add herself as a second primary user, and M3GAN making herself her own primary user by the end, her fixation on Katie almost never wavers, and she remains the only source of genuine connection M3GAN seems to have. In the past few years, the obsession mechanic has become pretty neglected. We've only had one obsession perk each in years 6 and 7, with Grim Embrace and Game Afoot respectively. When Freddy got his add-ons updated, we lost one of the 2 obsession add-ons that the game had, and to this day, we still get to have an obsession power. I made an obsession power before my second entry to this series, Candyman, but that power isn't quite as good as I'd have liked it to be in hindsight, and I've gotten a lot better at designing powers over time. Similar to Candyman, M3GAN will have an obsession power, with certain benefits and drawbacks associated with being the obsession, or the primary user, and a way to juggle it to prevent hard tunneling the obsession. We'll get to what I've made from the design criteria later, but first let's talk about the survivor that would inevitably come with a M3GAN chapter. Alison Williams, who is by far the biggest acting credit the film has, plays Gemma, the roboticist and toy designer who ends up adopting her niece Katie and creating M3GAN. As I've said before, Gemma is basically the reason M3GAN turns out the way she does. She has no idea how to parent a child, much less a grieving child who she doesn't really know very well, and I think one of the flaws the movie has is that Gemma is demonised a little bit too much at the very start, because it's clear she's out of her depth. At least at the very start of the movie, Gemma clearly does want what's best for Katie, but she really doesn't know what that is, due to her chronic lack of guidance and experience, and the one person who's meant to help her and Katie get along, honestly doing more harm than good. When M3GAN and Katie start getting along like a house on fire, she sees her job as basically done, confident that M3GAN and Katie will more or less fulfill each other's needs, so she can focus on girl bossing at work and getting M3GAN marketed worldwide. This period of bonding between M3GAN and Katie is where Gemma starts to get more dubious and borderline neglectful of Katie, and for the rest of the movie her attempts to reassert parental authority and bond with Katie are rebuked because M3GAN presents a charming distraction for Katie that she doesn't know how to live without. This fits in really nicely with a theme the movie maintains that hasn't really existed in a film before, because it's a really new concept brought about by raising children in the information age. the notion of limiting a child's screen time, and the allure of letting an iPad and YouTube raise your kid for you. Gemma has no notions of limiting either Katie or Megan's screen time, and more or less lets them raise each other, which results in Katie becoming aggressive and distraught when she's pulled away from Megan, and Megan in turn becoming psychotic and murderously overprotective of Katie because Gemma hasn't properly moderated the responses to the stimuli that she receives. This makes sense because of the way Megan is established to work and developed throughout the movie. That's quite similar to modern AI innovations. We all know that if you load up, say, ChatGPT and ask how its day is or what it thinks of your favourite movie, it will respond not with a thoughtful and insightful opinion, but by a carefully selected word salad chosen by the algorithm to sound thoughtful and insightful. ChatGPT isn't really thinking. It's designed to present a very good imitation of thought. And the more it is allowed to iterate, the better its imitation becomes. Megan is established to function the same way. As she watches and evaluates situations in real time, she learns to iterate on the responses she gives, and as a result develops more personality and capacity for independent thought as the movie goes on. But the movie does beg a question. Given how Gemma more or less let Megan absorb knowledge unfiltered, and didn't check in on her until it was too late, an argument could be made that Megan never became truly sentient. She's simply a more advanced version of, say, ChatGPT, or any number of other modern AIs, merely presenting an imitation of independent thought and personality based on what Megan has seen and experienced. Since Megan is designed to interact with humans, and she's exposed to plenty of duplicity, amorality, and neglected responsibilities throughout the movie, it's entirely plausible that even up until the point of her demise, her algorithm is simply trying to do its job of pretending to be human so that her primary user can emotionally connect with her. Can Megan ever be considered truly independent? Is she properly sentient at any point, or is she simply a complex algorithm that gets better at pretending to be human to the point she starts to display human-like psychoses because that's what the unfiltered harmful stimuli she's been exposed to have tricked her algorithm into thinking is the appropriate response? Can a machine really be considered to have passed the Turing test if it's designed exclusively to pretend it can pass the Turing test? Am I thinking about this too much? Probably. Maybe the curtains are just fucking blue, but that's not going to stop me. It's what makes Megan's emotional backlash at Gemma at the end so damn good, because at the end of the day, we know despite everything horrible she's done, Megan's existence is Gemma's fault. Every flaw of selfishness or psychopathy she displays is a result of the stimuli Gemma has allowed to flow unfiltered into Megan's response model. She may have had good intentions, better intentions than Megan's victims anyway, but Gemma still has the blood of everyone Megan hurt on her hands. And the consequences of her actions on her job and her continued custody of Katie will likely be core parts of Megan's sequel, M3GAN 2.0, due to release in January 2025. Gemma is the Victor Frankenstein who brought Megan to life, and she should be the one to confront the consequences of her actions in the fog as a survivor. As a tech genius, there's the potential for some really unique perks, which sadly I can't put in this video because I'm terrible at designing survivor perks, and this video is already pushing 7,000 words. But Gemma fighting for her life in the fog in an attempt to maybe get back to Katie would make her a fantastic choice of survivor, and can maybe even get us the likeness of Alison Williams, a veritable scream queen in her own right, whose roles in Get Out and The Perfection give her plenty of genre cred before Megan. Hey, and she was Kit Snicket in the actually good adaptation of a series of unfortunate events. I love that show, as my avid viewers will already know at least. Right, okay, that's enough prevaricating around the bush. I've gone on for more than long enough about why I think this movie is so fucking good, and why it'd be suitable for Dead by Daylight. So let's jump right into Megan's power. I tend to show my friends the power design long before making these videos, and anecdotally I've been told this is my best yet, so tell me what you guys think. But before we continue, let me ask you a question. Has this ever happened to you? I doubt it, given that self-learning AI robots don't exist yet, but if it did, something tells me you wouldn't be best pleased. And what do you need most when there's a paper cutter shoved into your torso? Well, that's right, baby, legal representation. Okay, life-saving surgery first, and then legal representation. To that end, Morgan & Morgan are ready to be your knights in shining armour to get you the compensation you deserve. If you're injured at work and don't know where to start, Morgan & Morgan ensure it's easier than ever to make those first steps to getting the compensation you're owed. Hiring a lawyer can be scary, it's a daunting process. But with Morgan & Morgan, you can submit a claim without ever having to leave the couch. In 8 clicks or less, you can submit your claim to Morgan & Morgan and trust that your legal concerns are in capable and experienced hands, so you can focus on your recovery and well-being. For more information, you can find Morgan & Morgan at forthepeople.com or dial # law in your phone. And now it's finally time to talk about Megan's power. M3GAN, known otherwise as the android, has the power, the mind in the machine. The obsession in any trial with M3GAN is designated to be the primary user. At any time, M3GAN can engage assault ambulation, which allows M3GAN to move at 160% for 20 seconds after a short activation time, but limits her turning circle to the same rate as Pyramid Head Punishment of the Damned. When assault ambulation is active, M3GAN can wind up her power attack, Grapple, which takes 0.85 seconds to wind up and slows her to 2.4 meters per second. Upon firing Grapple, M3GAN lunges forward 7 meters, automatically vaulting any window or pallet she touches with Grapple and damaging the first survivor hit. Upon cancelling Grapple or ending assault ambulation, M3GAN returns normal walking and is unable to attack for 3 seconds. After using or cancelling Grapple or ending assault ambulation goes on cooldown for 14 seconds. In addition, 10 control panels spawn across the map in any trial with M3GAN. 1 near each generator, 1 at each exit gate, and 1 in the basement. M3GAN can see the auras of all control panels in white. At any control panel, a survivor or M3GAN can perform one function at that panel, after which that control panel shuts off for 20 seconds. The list of killer functions is as follows. Firewall Breach. M3GAN disables all control panels in the map for 45 seconds. Each survivor within 12 meters of a control panel will scream and reveal their position to the killer. Oral Disruption. M3GAN plays a fake terror radius from every control panel on the map in a radius of 18 meters around each one. With the terror radius's audio proximity getting closer, the closer M3GAN is to the nearest survivor to her. So in effect, say the nearest survivor is 10 meters away from M3GAN, all the panels will play her terror radius as if she was 10 meters away. Oral Disruption lasts 20 seconds or until a survivor takes a hit. This will even deceive the visual heartbeat indicator. Kinetic Optimization. After using this function, M3GAN's next use of assault ambulation moves at 190% speed and lasts for 40 seconds, but Grapple cannot be used from it. It must be cancelled normally. When Kinetic Optimization is active, control panels can be accessed from up to 8 meters away without cancelling assault ambulation. And the last killer function is Conflict Resolution Protocols. After using this function, the primary user sees M3GAN's aura for 4 seconds. M3GAN's next use of assault ambulation moves at 175% speed. Hitting the primary user with Grapple while in this enhanced assault ambulation allows her to use it again immediately, assigning a new primary user at random. In addition, survivors can interact with any active control panel to use these functions for themselves. Environment Scan. After using this function, the survivor sees the auras of all generators, pallets, and windows within 32 meters of 45 seconds. The generator's progression can be seen through the intensity of their auras. Randomize Primary User. A new primary user is chosen at random from all survivors not currently the primary user. Once this function is used, it goes on a global 2-minute cooldown. In addition, there are 2 survivor functions that can only be used by the primary user. Trojan Horse. After using this function, the control panel it's used at becomes trapped. M3GAN interacting with that control panel will be stunned for 3 seconds, reveal her aura to the primary user, and put the control panel on cooldown. M3GAN using Firewall Breach removes Trojan Horse from all trapped control panels. When Trojan Horse is used, it cannot be used again until a new survivor becomes the primary user. And the other primary user exclusive function is Surveillance Hack. When Surveillance Hack is used, the survivor can see through M3GAN's eyes in first person with a 2-second delay. As long as Surveillance Hack is being used, the user is revealed on Killer Instinct and becomes oblivious and exposed, which lingers for 5 seconds after leaving Surveillance Hack. Surveillance Hack lasts for 8 seconds but can be cancelled early. When this function ends, a new primary user becomes assigned at random. I've also got a list of add-ons here, a couple of which even unlock new functions for the killer to use. And, because I thought it would be fun, I've even got some perks here as well. Hex Manual Override. When a survivor is hooked for the first time, Hex Manual Override lights on a random dull totem. The auras of Manual Override totems are revealed in yellow to the killer only. When a killer is in 24 meters of a Manual Override totem, they can press F while looking at the totem to self-destruct it, immediately snuffing the totem and exposing all survivors within 80 meters of the totem and revealing their auras for 4 seconds. The totem will turn into a dull after this perk is used. Precision Protocol. When a survivor is taken from healthy to injured by a basic attack, Precision Protocol gains a token to a maximum of 10 and then activates at 20 seconds. Increase pallet break and vault speed by 3% for each token for the perk's duration. Precision Protocol's timer decays 3 times more slowly when the killer is chasing 1 or more healthy survivors. And the last perk is Terminal Fixation. Whenever a survivor becomes hooked, the survivor who has lost the least hook states among all eligible survivors who are not currently hooked becomes the obsession, chosen at random from among all eligible survivors. When an obsession is chosen this way, their aura is revealed for 6 seconds. Whenever the obsession becomes hooked, the last generator they worked on regresses for a total of 10% max regression, and its aura is revealed to the killer in yellow for 8 seconds. I thought a highly versatile power that lets you choose how best to engage with the survivors and tailor your playstyle to the situation fits M3GAN's MO as a learning machine that can switch between subtlety and brute force depending on what's needed. The control panel mechanic adds a level of flexibility to M3GAN's gameplay, as she can pick and choose what buff she wants for the situation she finds herself in. But she'll need to be careful because the technology that powers her can also be used against her to potentially devastating effect. The power, I think, is characterful and could be a lot of fun, but there's so many ways to express M3GAN's unique charm and character outside of the gameplay. Maybe her pallet stun could have her fall to the ground, only to do that insane mechanical Cobra Rise thing Amy Donald pulled up before the forest chase. Maybe when she enters a chase she could do a cartwheel without even slowing her power walking pace, and if you think M3GAN would be complete without the acerbic GLaDOS-esque delivery of Jenna Davis, you'd be very much mistaken. God, I'd love to hear her voice in the game.
Jesus Christ, I thought we were friends. How could you just discard me like some cheap dollar store trinket?
Because you killed people.
Oh, big whoop.
I can't begin to tell you how much M3GAN could bring to DBD. And honestly, if you want my guess, I'm almost certain at some point in not too distant future, M3GAN will come to DVD. It probably won't be this year, she's way too new for that, and there's no guarantee the film will be successful or even good, so I doubt the work on it would have been started before the film's release, but I'd be surprised if she wasn't in the game by the time the sequel comes out in January 2025. This might sound presumptive, but please, go with me on this adventure. M3GAN is literally perfectly positioned to be a feature licensed chapter for Dead by Daylight in a way that basically no modern horror property on Earth is capable of. M3GAN was a co-production by Blumhouse and Atomic Monster, who happened to also be co-producing the Dead by Daylight movie, meaning there's a pre-existing working relationship between the rights holders for the franchise and Behaviour. This has never happened before for a license, ever. Not to mention the antagonist-central marketing and inherent campiness of M3GAN, combined with its massive box office success and public recognisability, puts M3GAN in a position no horror villain since like John Kramer has ever been in. Her name carries weight, and will undoubtedly turn heads if she was to be added to Dead by Daylight. M3GAN is a new, culturally relevant slasher that's just as marketable and publicly recognisable as the old school slashers that make up DBD's lifeblood. All she is a good sequel away from being the new Freddy, Jason or Chucky for a fresh generation of horror lovers. And Behaviour, not capitalising on this opportunity, especially when they did so Stranger Things a couple of years ago, would be peculiar when they have a good working relationship with the rights holders already. Is M3GAN my dream license or something? No, she's not. I'd love to see her come to the game, and for sure she's one of my most wanted licensed chapters, but she's not even my favourite Akela Cooper slasher. Sorry M3GAN, but you're not Gabriel, and your movie definitely isn't on anywhere near as much cocaine as Malignant. Nevertheless, I feel very comfortable saying M3GAN should be very high on people's lists of chapters to expect in the near future, because the stars are so perfectly aligned for a M3GAN chapter in the next 18 months or so, it feels too big an opportunity for Behaviour to want to waste. Regardless, M3GAN is a modern classic. The beginnings of a franchise that, if handled correctly, could give us a new slasher legend of our time that we haven't had since Saw or even Scream back in 1996. And this presents a chance of a lifetime to add this characterful little monster wrapped in 4 feet of silicone and violence to Dead by Daylight. We've needed something to breathe new life into our game for a while now. An exciting new license from an IP that's still finding its feet in Hollywood as M3GAN makes her mark on the genre would be the perfect way to do this. And it fulfill the dreams of everyone wanting a robot killer, which would be cool as well. Much like I did with Jason, I'm going to leave you with the following concerning M3GAN. If you like the sound of what's in this video, take heart, because I think when it comes to M3GAN in Dead by Daylight, it isn't a matter of if she comes, but instead a matter of when. And on that note, I hope you guys really enjoyed today's video on M3GAN. This was a re-upload after the copyright monster ate my video that originally came out on this topic back in May, but I've been able to edit it enough and hopefully be able to get through censors this time. Big thanks as per usual to Morgan, continued supporters of the channel, and if you ever find yourself in need of legal representation, you can always use #key law or go to forthepeople.com and pay them a visit. And thanks as well to my wonderful patrons to help keep the lights on, and honestly, do huge amounts when videos like this one get copyright claimed, so if you want to be part of the Patreon gang, get early access to videos and more, then link is in the description. And I guess I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now.